Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft Redstone tutorial. In this video we're going to be looking at a couple of different wool farm options. I have a kind of single tileable wool farm behind me. I also have a piston feed tape power design over here, and we're going to be looking at both of them. This one over here, if I go over here, this one is a lot simpler. It's very resource light. Really don't need much. You need an observer, a target block, a dispenser, a piece of redstone dust, and some hoppers and hopper minecarts. Over here, as you can see, it's a lot more complicated with multiple pistons, a lot more observers, comparators. I've got a little counter over here. It's just a lot more time intensive. I personally like this one over here quite a bit more, so we're going to be starting here. Let me just get all the blocks that I need for it. And last but not least, so this design is 3x3x4, I believe. It does extend one block below for the hopper minecart, but you don't necessarily have to do it this way. For instance, if you have a bunch of these modules set up side by side, you could always just have the hopper minecart go from one to the next. So you don't necessarily need this hopper down here if you're doing it that way and you've got an item collection area somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a hopper and a rail on top of it with some grass blocks around the rail. These do need to be grass blocks, as we are going to be taking advantage of the grass block or grass spreading mechanic. On top of one of these, you will want an observer pointing in and a grass block that the observer is watching. On the back of the observer, you want a target block with some redstone dust. On top of the observer, you want a dispenser. On top of all three of these other grass blocks, you will want two pieces of glass. In these diagonals, so exactly diagonal from our central grass block, you will want another grass block, and then on top of each one of these, you will want a grass block. And that's it. That is the entirety of this farm. Let me just go get a sheep spawn egg, and I will spawn a few sheep in. You will want to have multiple sheep in one cell because that will speed up the process. You'll also need to fill up your dispenser with shears, and you will maybe want to prime the system by shearing the sheep as they're in the farm manually. And so you can do this just by spamming the lever. So the sheep should, the wool should get picked up. Of course, it would probably help if I actually put the hopper minecart down. This wool will get picked up and put down here, and you can naturally connect this up to any sort of item collection system that you want. This does take advantage of how grass spreads, so you will want all of these grass blocks exactly where they are. Now, if you would like to tile the system, so that just grew, and now we're waiting for the sheep to eat it. So you want a lot of grass blocks so that way the grass will spread more quickly, and you want a bunch of sheep in there, that way one of them will eat the grass more quickly. If you do want to tile it, it does actually kind of neatly slide in together, these different modules. You can essentially take advantage of the grass blocks on the right side of one module and use that for the left side of the next module. So they can share kind of the feeder or seeder grass blocks from one module to the next. So this right here, all of this space right here is what you would need to do all 16 colors of wool. I think I'm missing a few grass blocks here and there because I was just playing around with how it tiles. But you can see it's a pretty compact way to get all 16 colors of wool. So this is a very simple farm. This is my personal preference when it comes to wool farms, just because it is kind of passive. You don't really need to worry about it. You can have a hopper pointing into the side of your dispenser to feed in more of the shears. You cannot do a dispenser on the back. And I mean, while you could do a dispenser on the top, I would advise against it because, again, we want to have as many grass blocks in the right placement as possible. Over here, we have a piston feed tape design. So this piston feed tape is going to constantly replace the block underneath the sheep with a fresh grass block. So we're not necessarily limited by how quickly the grass spreads. It's got some time to spread. You can naturally make this piston feed tape as long as you like. I just did it 5 by 5 by 5. So I'm going to start by building out the square that is going to be my piston feed tape, and then you want to punch out all of the corners but one. On each of these corners, let me just clear my inventory and get some new blocks. So you can kind of pick your directionality. I'm going to pick a clockwise or counterclockwise rotation here. So on the last block before that empty one, you want an observer with a solid block below it. Let me get a solid block other than dirt. We'll get wool, since this is it. This is a wool farm. So we're going to place a redstone dot there. Next to that redstone dot, we're going to place a target block and then a regular piston facing out. Essentially, whenever this observer sees a change in front of it, it will fire that piston. So it will see a change when a block gets pushed past it. So we're going to go ahead and build out the other corners. You don't necessarily have to do this in a square shape. You could do any kind of like trailing, zigzagging pattern that you like. It really does not matter. So I'm just going to finish out here. And the last corner, I also need a piston facing in the correct orientation. And I will want a... Yeah, so I think that's... Yes, this is what I want. Sorry, these piston feed tapes are sometimes a little bit tricky for me to wrap my head around. So the way that it works is when this piston here gets a signal, so I will just get myself yeah, we'll do a lever. When it gets a signal, it will push out, and as long as that signal is short enough, we're going to be good. If we were to keep the piston extended, then we would actually break the farm. So it does kind of depend on some lag concerns. So one of the things you can do, and I've actually done it over here, is instead of this setup here, you can have a repeater to lengthen the signal. So I'm going to just put a repeater on 2 ticks right there. And I would do this on, really I only would worry about doing it on the one immediately before the last one. But if you want, you could do it on all of them. It really shouldn't change anything. Okay, so now we need to work up the sheep shearing station. So let me go ahead and clear my inventory. And I will get what I need from over here. So this last corner here, the one that is filled in, is the one that we are going to be building our sheep shearing station around. So I'm just building up some glass walls here. We also want a dispenser facing into the sheep pen. and we want an observer watching that. Just like the other farm, we want to be watching the grass block that the sheep would be eating. Now, what's going to be a little bit different is we're going to have our target block with our redstone dust on top. That's not dust. But off the back, we're going to have a pair of droppers facing into each other. These droppers are going to act kind of like a T flip-flop or a counter. They're going to count up how many times this observer ticks, because we don't want it to fire every time that the observer observes something, because that observer is going to be watching the sheep eat the grass, going to be watching the grass get pushed out, and then watching a new piece of grass get pushed in. So we actually only want it to do something once every 2 or 3 cycles. I think the way that it works with, it doesn't quite count correctly. I believe this is because the push in and push out are happening at the time where we're resetting the circuit. So we don't necessarily need to worry about it too much. Coming up next, we're going to need a couple of observers, or not observers, comparators, and a composter. So the observers, and let me get my red wool, or not observer, I keep calling these observers. The comparator is going to be reading a signal off of the back, what's it called? The back dropper. And this is going to be in subtract mode. We need to subtract an amount from it. So if I were to, for instance, look at the signal strength here with F3, we get a power of 2 just having a single item in. We don't want that. We want it to be a power of 0 with that single item in. So we're going to use a composter here, and I'm going to fill it up to level 2. So because the composter is going to be at level 2, again, looking at the top right-hand corner, you can see level 2. This comparator here has a signal strength of 2 coming in, and we're subtracting 2, which is giving us a signal strength of 0. That's what we want. We want to do... Oh, I built this all 1 block too far over. That's okay. Not the end of the world. So I'm going to get an observer, and I want to be watching this, because when that signal strength changes is when I want the circuit to fire. So I'm going to use some observers here to chain the signal over. It's kind of silly. If I had built this 1 block over to the right, like I did here, it would have been a little bit more of a straight shot, but I don't really worry too much about, I'm not going to worry about that at all. On the other side of that 1 redstone dust, we're going to want a repeater. So let me just grab a repeater here. And that repeater, I think I want it on 2 or 3 ticks. Oh, no, I want it on a full 4. This is going to be our reset circuit, because we want to, once we get our second hoe, or, oh, this is important. These need to be unstackable items. If they're stackable items, then they're not going to work right. So I'm using wooden hoes here just because they're a simple unstackable item. I'm placing a solid block here. That way, when I power the solid block, it's going to only trigger this dropper and not the dropper in front. We are going to want an observer facing this way and another observer facing that way. And this is where what makes this design so much more expensive. We're going to need a sticky piston. That sticky piston will need to be directly behind this observer here. And then I think we just need to connect up a little bit more redstone, and we should be good to go. I have also kind of neglected the collection system, where we can use the exact same collection system we did before. So let me just get the right blocks, and I will place that all in here. And I'll put some leaves on either side just to keep the minecart from going crazy. And that should do it with this farm. Let me go ahead and get some sheep in here. Some shears. I don't think I've filled this dispenser up with shears yet. So we can see there that it actually went ahead and triggered. Let me just get a lever so that way I can manually trigger this a few more times. Okay. Oh, did I break it? Okay. So right now we're waiting on grass to spread, and then I think I may have gotten in the way a little bit of this when I was spamming my, what's it called? So let me try. Okay. That should do it. So now we're just waiting on the sheep to eat, and we should be good to go. You can build this sheep pen pretty much on any part of the circuit. I personally like doing it before that, but you can do it after that. You could do it over here if you want, but you will need to run a signal all the way around to that piston. So it just makes sense to do it near that piston. You could, if you wanted to, if you had a long enough piston tape, you could probably have these sheep cells in a couple different spots. It's just only one of them would actually trigger the piston feed tape. Unless you did something kind of convoluted, maybe having that hopper minecart running around underneath the piston feed tape, and if it has an item, it drops the item off and that sends the signal. So that is another option that would give you the opportunity to have more cells. But those are the basic ideas behind these two farms. Like I said, I much prefer this one over here. It's just a lot simpler, a lot less likely to break. Anytime you have pistons and systems like this set up, it can break, especially if I look F3 and G. You can see here I actually did not build this within one chunk, so there's a chunk border here. So if I happen to go out of rendering distance, some parts of the circuit may still be running while other parts aren't, and it could potentially break. I don't think that this version would actually break too badly. As you saw there at the beginning, I kind of broke it myself, and I managed to spam it, and it worked eventually. But yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments area below. If you have suggestions for the next kind of farm, let me know, and I'll catch